Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to simply be stating that Speech Bill 1-1A has been set into order. We've voted on it, and it's been passed into law. The action of speech is protected in all levels except threats. The only way to limit speech is in the case that threatens loss of or physical damage of human life. And the idea of hate speech. Now, my belief on hate speech. Hate speech is protected by the Constitution. Now, I grew up believing that sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt me. But for hate speech, I don't know. My belief simply is that hate speech is protected by the Constitution. Whether I believe it should be or not, irrelevant. I believe that you simply can't ban someone from saying something simply because it hurts your feelings. I mean, who decides what hate speech is? I mean, I get that saying certain words, it's not good to say. You shouldn't say them. But, and I think that goes for all people. Like, there's just certain words that you shouldn't say. So, but you can't control what people say. I mean, if a president came into the United States and said, hey, I'm Christian, and you cussing, it offends me. So, I'm gonna ban cussing. There'd be riots, protests like crazy saying, hey, no. Because you simply just cannot ban a word because it offends someone. That being said, hate speech is protected unless threats of loss of life or physical damage. So you can't say, I'm going to kill you, because that's a threat of possible physical damage or death. That's a threat. So you simply just cannot do that. Now, if you use hatred in that, you can't do that either. It's, again, threatening someone. And I heavily based my freedoms off of the American freedoms. And I'm an American, so I'm very for my constitutional rights to speech. My constitutional rights to fire weapons. Not at people, though. Just fire my weapons on my property, on a range. I believe it's my constitutional right to own a firearm. So, I've known these rights. These are the rights I'm comfortable with. These are the rights I don't want taken away. So in my micronation, we're going to have these rights. They're basic human rights. Now, back to the hate speech thing. Because someone says something to you, and you get mad, yes, there's bad people. But you can't simply sit there and say, I'm going to ban hate speech simply because it offended me. Because if you do that, it's just going to make things worse. Because if you want to stop people from doing stuff, you got to do it in a way that's in the home. There's a lot of problems that stem from the home. Home lives are bad. I mean, parents are very big parts of a child's life. If you don't want someone becoming racist or hateful, teach them not to be hateful. Teach them not to say the words that are offensive to people. And I understand that, we've tried before to teach kids not to be hateful when it doesn't work. Well, what are you doing? Saying, oh, now, little Johnny, that's bad. Don't say that. Go to the principal's office. And the principal will say the same thing. That was a bad thing to say. You're going to get suspended and go back to your racist parents who say the exact same thing. And you're going to get more exposure to that racism. What is that? I mean, like, suspending people for schools. Now I'm going to start going into educational stuff. How the education system in America is pretty screwed up. If you suspend a kid and they go home, what are they going to do? They're going to sit there and probably play video games, unless they're good parents and, they get, punished for getting suspended. Now, my parents, whenever I got suspended, would always say, well, you got suspended. What are you going to do now? I'm sorry if I'm looking down that way. My cats are playing down there. It's distracting. But, yeah. If racism is that bad in America, then perhaps we need a change in education. Because if we won't be able to change many people who've already had that mindset. We won't be able to change people just because we just won't be able to change people in that regard. So we gotta focus on the new generations. We have to focus on who's coming in to the future. We gotta focus on the future. We can't focus on the past. We can't focus on what's going on right now. We gotta focus on what's to come. What is can't think of the words right now, but it's like we can't focus on what's going on right now. We gotta focus. Well, we have to focus on what's going on right now, because if we don't, then no problems will be found, and no problems will be. But if we think of what's going to come in the future, our actions right now will affect the future. That's what we gotta do. We gotta think on what we're doing now and how it'll affect the future. Now, yeah. For instance, carbon is putting a lot of carbon into the air. Carbon dissolves into water, and it makes like a acidic water. That's damaging for sea life. Killing off a lot of sea life would destroy the biosphere and ecosystem. One reason, like in the last video, I described this project. That's another reason I want to test that, to figure out different things and how to fix them, if certain things are reversible. So we got to think of what's going on right now. We got to think of what we can do now to affect the future. And there's a lot of things to do to affect the future. Now, I'm all for recycling. I don't do it myself, but I'm for it. I want to start taking bottles, and there's a little mechanism you can make. You can get a board and take two little wooden nubs on it, and then take a razor blade and then stick it on those nubs, and then screw the razor blade down, and you can cut the bottom of the bottle off, and you can make rope by pulling. You can make rope out of those plastic bottles, and I think that's a really good idea. Reuse the plastic bottles to make rope. But yeah. But for me, that's just one person doing that. And whether you believe in climate change or not, it's not. Right now, I'm not talking about climate change because there's still a lot of debate on whether or not that exists. I believe that climate change exists, but humans still don't have the capacity to affect it to such a great degree. I believe that climate change happens because it's a natural course. Excuse me. But, where was I? Yeah, I think we should, if we want to change how the future's presented with us, we can't have things like, we gotta do it ourselves. I mean, like, we can't simply just do things on our own. If we want something done, we have to come together and do it. So, I mean, like, if we want companies to cut emissions, well, I mean, gotta protest harder. You gotta get the word out there. But see, there's certain things. There's a certain law, like not an actual law, but like it's something about how people will focus on the pressing issues in their lives. To a lot of people, the coral reefs dying out is not a very pressing issue. How they're going to overcome economic struggles is important. How they're going to figure out certain things in their life, that's the pressing issue for them. But, you know, we gotta figure out a way to make these things seem like a more pressing issue. I mean, it is a pressing issue, don't get me wrong, but people don't see it as such a pressing issue. We gotta make it seem more like it is. So, and that goes with anything. If you notice a problem within anything, you gotta make it seem like it's as bad as you think it is. If things are as bad as you think it is, then you gotta push it out there and make it known that, hey, this is going to affect all of us. And, you know, you gotta spread that message that this is our home. And it's still many years off before we can even think about getting a residential section on Mars, like citizens on Mars. So simply we cannot sit here and say, you know, oh, if we destroy this world, we've got however many ever. We can't say that. We can't. Because from what I hear, like, even going to Mars, like people going to Mars, it's still 2030. That's almost a whole nother decade. Or it is a whole other decade. Me, personally, I will be like 27. I'll be 27 by the time 2030 comes around. So, how are we going to focus on the future? That's my message right now. I started out simply talking about a small speech bill that me and my Prime Minister passed. But I went into this whole rant about how we need to focus on the future. We cannot let the past affect us. We have to remember the past. See, there's this thing I used to say, or I still say. I have had a rough life, but I don't let it be my ball and chain. I don't let it be something that drags me down and holds me down. I let it be my jet fuel and push me forward. But I don't forget it. I forgive, but I don't forget. Because if I forget, the people that done it will do it again. And I can't let that happen. Because the future is too important. My future and the world's future is too important for past struggles to drag us down. We have to focus on how our present affects the future, while remembering what the past has happened. So yeah, that's my statement. That's my point of view on the current world stage. Don't let what happened in the past be your ball and chain. Let it be your propellant to push yourself in the future. So yes, thank you all for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.